This year's Canyon ISD Football Show is being brought to you by Nichole Thompson of State Farm. She's located in Amarillo. Now, she used to be the Hereford title sponsor, but then she moved to Amarillo, so she has taken over as the Canyon ISD title sponsor, and we do appreciate her being title sponsor of a show here again on the S2S Sports Network. Now, if you need insurance and you're out in Amarillo or around Amarillo, Nichole Thompson is who you want to talk to. She's located at 4722 Southwestern Street, Suite C in Amarillo. You can give her a call at 806-391-1033. Her mobile is 806-881-7881. Office hours are Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. After hours by appointment. Of course, it's State Farm, so you know if you have an emergency, she will be there for you. You can also find her online at www.NicholeThompson.com. You can also find her on Facebook. Just type in Nichole Thompson State Farm in the search. Now, we all know in these times finding something affordable is such a big deal, but having a good agent is just as important too. And the great thing is with State Farm, you can have both. You can have a great agent like Nichole who's going to help you do things like bundle your auto and home or your auto and a motorcycle or a boat. She's an agent that will guide you through all that and help you make the right decision on which coverages are perfect for you. You don't have to worry about the hassle. You don't have to worry about all the headaches. Nichole is going to take care of that. So again, price is important. Affordability is important. But having a good agent is just as important. And the great thing is with her, you have both. And we do appreciate her for being a title sponsor of the Canyon ISD Football Show here in 2023. Here at L4 Media, we talk high school football, 4A, 3A, and 2A in Texas. We talk East Texas sports. We talk NFL, guy talk, movie and booze. We also talk wrestling and so much more. And you can see it all on our YouTube channel at L4 Media Company. Like and subscribe. 2 big wins and a tough loss for Canyon ISD. Hello, everybody. Terry Bennett here on the Canyon ISD Football Show, brought to you by Nichole Thompson State Farm right there in Amarillo. We do appreciate her being the title sponsor. As you saw, the 3 schools go 2-1. Randall taking the tough loss to Paladuro 45-27. West Plains in an absolute exciting game against Estacado, winning that one 51-34. And then Canyon coming from behind to beat the Rangers of Midland Greenwood 35-21. So all in all, a very good week for the Canyon ISD schools. Randall falls to 3-2. West Plains is now 4-1, and the Eagles of Canyon, they're also 4-1. So we're going to talk a little bit about those games and then preview the games that are coming up. All 3 teams are still outside district as district play is starting to ramp up across the state. Randall has a very interesting game against Canadian. I saw Canadian this a couple weeks ago against Bushland. Grant Goodwin and I have sideline to sideline. You ever want to hear sideline to sideline? Check us out. S2SGrantandTerry.com. We're also on all podcast platforms and on YouTube at L4 Media. But we went up to Canyon to watch that Bushland Canyon game, and man, Bushland Canadian game, I should say. But man, Canadian's the real deal down there in 3A Division 2. I know Randall has the big depth advantage being a 4A Division 1, but Cavalier at quarterback for Canadian. This is going to be a tough one for Canyon Randall. And it was a tough one for them last week as they fell to Paladuro. Some good offensive stats for Randall as Tristan Sanchez ran for 125 yards and a touchdown. He also threw for 186 yards and 2 touchdowns, but he also had 2 interceptions. Connor Miller, the sophomore, continuing having a strong season, 4 catches, 54 yards. Caden Miller, the junior, 69 yards through the air with receptions and 2 touchdowns. And, this was just a game where the Raiders could not make the stop when they needed to. This was just one of those games where the Raiders defense couldn't make the stop when they needed to. They had a couple turnovers. They fall to 3-2, and again, they take on Canadian this week. And this is going to be a tough one, too. Like I said, Cavalier at quarterback. He is one of the best quarterbacks in West Texas, period. End of discussion. Last year, the Raiders went up to Canadian and got beat pretty bad. I think it was like 56-21. I don't think it'll be that bad this time, but Canadian's the real deal. And they're going to probably – I still think that they might even be still better than Gunner, though. When I saw Gunner a couple weeks ago against Brock, wow, Gunner is impressive as well. But for Randall, this is the last game before before district play. They'll start it up 3-4A Division I next week against Dumas, and that's going to be an interesting game because you've got Canyon, of course, at 4-1. You've got Hereford, who has just absolutely surprised everybody by going 5-0. And I know I've said this before, but it is kind of funny. Nichole Thompson, the State Farm title sponsor of this show, last year she was in Hereford, and she was our title sponsor, and it was painful. I mean, it was absolutely painful to talk football for Hereford last year. Not because we didn't like Hereford. I mean, Grant and I have always been big fans of going to Hereford games, but it was just simply they struggled. They were 1-9, and their only win was against Randall last year. And so it was just so painful. And here they are now, 5-0. I love Adam Nairn's turnaround there. Caleb Ramirez, the quarterback, really, really good. They've got a really strong running back in Brylan Lopez. And the thing is, man, is they're really young. Hereford's not going away, and Nairn has really done a wonderful job turning that program around. So they're 5-0. Now, you got Dumas, who's 1-4, but, man, when you look at who they've played, losing to Cooper, to Estacado, beating Perryton, losing to Plainview, and losing to Bushland in a game that, honestly, I thought the Demons were a little bit more competitive in than I thought they would be. We went out and saw that game last year when it was in Dumas, and Bushland won going away 38-20, and honestly, it wasn't even that close. So I was kind of impressed with a young Demon team kind of staying in that game with them. Now we'll have to see if that continues, starts them on a hot trend or not. They're still 1-4. They should win this week. They've got El Paso Austin on Thursday. And then again, that Canyon Randall game to start district. And so what I was saying is, you're going to get 4 teams in this district. There's only 5. So this is not necessarily an elimination game next week. It could be if you don't take care of business against somebody else, but it's a seeding game. And so for Randall to want to at least assure themselves of almost guaranteeing a playoff spot, 1 win will do that. As long as I say that, you've still got to take care of the other teams around you. It's not about beating the top team. It's about beating the teams at your level or below you. And to be honest with you, I feel like Randall can feel like they're competitive in this district. You look at Canyon, who, again, got the big win against Greenwood, but they needed a comeback. They were down 21-14. They ended up kind of taking over in the second half. That run game just absolutely outstanding as they rushed for 340 total yards. That's not offensive yards. That's just rushing. But still, they needed a comeback. And Greenwood is young, and Greenwood is struggling this year. They're winless. And against Caprock the week before, they looked okay. So 4-3-4A Division I, I think both Canyon and Randall are in the playoffs, are going to make the playoffs, but it's the seeding. That is the most important thing when it comes to that. It's not just about making it. It's about where you're playing. And I still think right now Canyon is the prohibitive favorite of 3-4A Division I. I think it's them and then Hereford. And then Randall and Dumas fighting for that last 2 spots. Canyon this week takes on Andrews. Now, Andrews started out really hot, and we even talked about them a little bit on our Sideline to Sideline show when they beat Randall. But then they got beat by Monahans, which, by the way, that's not a bad loss. The Lobos are the real deal this year. But they still lost to them 49-27. They beat Greenwood 41-28. Then they lose to Seminole 34-26. And then last week they beat Lubbock 55-21. This is going to be a 1 or 2 possession type game, in my opinion. Last year, this was a 44-30 game that Canyon kind of stretched it out at the end. But I think this game this year, it's going to be a lot more competitive. Wouldn't shock me if it's a little bit lower scoring, but not too much. For the Mustangs, Tom Harvey's squad, they lost a ton from last year's team. But they have some good young talent there. Running back Jashawn DeBow. Aiden Olivius at quarterback. But the thing is they're trying to rebuild that line. They're trying to kind of rebuild the depth. But, man, that slot T, you just need snaps. Those offensive linemen are going to know what they're supposed to do. They've been running that slot T for a while. And so, and also making the playoffs, going a couple rounds, that's extra practice for the young team. So don't count out Andrews. This is going to be a really good game. It's going to be a game that you could see both teams top 400 yards in rushing alone, because both teams are really, really good at doing that. All right, let's flip it over now, and let's look at West Plains. They get the big win against Estacado last week. Wow. As a lot of people were thinking that Estacado was going to win this game. Estacado came in unbeaten, looking really good, but Reed Macon, man, what a great game. 351 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. King Talent, 11 passes caught for 85 yards. Kyron Wooten racked up 166 yards on 7 catches. Breland Franklin, he had a couple catches. And then on the ground, Jordy Hernandez, he had 33 carries for, I think it was 215 yards and 3 touchdowns, I think. So just an absolute wonderful offensive game. And honestly, I know it sounds crazy to say this, but I think for the most part, the defense played pretty well against an Estacado team that's super, super talented and super, super deep. So, that score, I think, just shows you how good this West Plains team is. And it's time maybe to start talking about this West Plains team being a team that could be a region threat. Now, we'll get a little bit more idea of them as they're going to take on Hereford this week, and then they start district next week against Seminole. We'll wrap it up with that. And that right there could be your district championship. You've got Canyon right now 4-1. You've got Seminole 5-0. Borger is 3-2. Now, you go look at Seminole and who they've played. They beat Lovington, New Mexico. They beat Shallowater. That's a good win. They beat Clint Mountain View. It's okay. They beat Andrews. We've talked about them. And then they beat Pecos. They take on Big Spring this week. So, yeah, that could very well be what is your district championship for 2-4A Division II. Perryton on the year. They're 1-4. They lost to Dalhart. They lost to Canyon. They lost to Dumas. They lost to Canadian, and they beat Pampa last week. Now, to say one thing, Dalhart's really, really solid this year, at least record-wise. They lost that game by 3. They lost to Canyon, and it was a 8-point game. And then they lost to Dumas. That game kind of got away from. And then, again, Canadian's Canadian. So don't look at the Perryton record of 1-4 and just assume that they're not going to be that good this year. They have a really good, strong quarterback in Julian Cervantes. Frank Jimenez at running back. Again, line plays a little bit of an issue. But they're kind of repeating last year. Last year they were 3-8, but they were within 1 score in almost all of their games, and they, again, played a tough schedule. When you look at that, the Canyon beat them last year 49-27. Dumas beat them by 2. Pampa by 7. Stratford by 7. West Plains by 3. And remember that game, 45-42. And so this was a team that just was 1 or 2 plays away. Now, it looks like they're continuing that. So we've got to see if they're going to be able to right the ship. They're going to take on Stratford this week, and then they start district play next week against Levelland. The Lobos, they're 2-3 on the year. They lost to Plainview, shut out by Snyder, beat Lubbock, and then lost to Lubbock Estacado 62-9. And then last week beat San Angelo Lakeview 32-3. We'll see this week. Dalhart is a team that's kind of surprised some people, and I'm curious to see what the Lobos will do against them. And that'll be, I don't want to call it a calibration game, but it'll at least give us a little idea of what plane they're on. The Borger Bulldogs, they're 3-2. They started out losing to Denver City 19-14, shut out River Road 42-0, beat La Mesa 42-12, and last week, or 2 weeks ago, got beat 35-0 by Bushland. Sorry, getting my scores mixed up. And then last week, they kind of, again, surprisingly beat Dalhart 41-38. I keep bringing up Dalhart, and that was their first loss. They were 4-1, and a lot of people were talking about them kind of sniffing the bottom of the top 10, but they fell back to earth with that loss to Borger. Because the Bulldogs are okay, but they're not great. They do have one of the best helmets in the not only the region but the state. Last year they were 2-8. They returned not a ton of that, but they do have some good talent this year. KJ Jennings at quarterback, Avery Adam at running back. You got Tyler Brooks. He's a really good wide receiver cornerback. So they're a team that if you don't watch out, they can beat anybody. Will they? I don't think so. I mean, I don't think they'll beat West Plains or Seminole. I could see them pulling it off and getting a fourth or a third. This isn't quite like the Canyon and Randall district where the fourth place team is going to be bad, or the fifth place team is going to be bad. I think the fifth place team is going to be a solid team, even if their record is not great. All right. That's going to do it for this week. So we do again thank Nichole Thompson of State Farm there in Amarillo. Man, it's been one of those weeks, man, just cannot get my wording right. But we do thank her for being tile sponsor. I want to remind everybody, if you have any questions, thoughts, or comments, email me, Terry at s2ssport.com. Be safe if you're going out to the football games and enjoy them. And remember, it's entertainment. Yeah, you want to win, but don't take it too hard. And until next time, I'm Terry Bennett, and this has been the Canyon ISD Football Show, brought to you by Nichole Thompson of State Farm.